Welcome back, guys, and in this video we will be learning about loops, and as we mentioned we will copy this and we will just create a new project and learn about loops and then kind of connect our new knowledge with our old knowledge. So let's do loops, finish, and then we can close, or actually let's keep this open because then we can take the code from there. So as you can see, we have our hello world. Now let's print hello world 1,000 times to the console. So how would we do that? Well, one solution is that we can do like this, hello world, and we can copy this 1,000 times. Obviously this is a very dumb solution because we have computers that can do things over and over again. I hope you remember from JavaScript that loops do things over and over again. Instead, what we can do is that we can create a for loop just like in JavaScript, but here we need to declare an int variable to 0, and then we need to have a condition, basically as long as counter is less than 100. And then what do we do with each iteration? Well, we add 1 to counter. This I hope you remember from JavaScript, that you have initialization here. You basically create a variable, and here you basically tell what kind of condition needs to be true for this loop to continue running. So as long as counter is less than 100. And how do we change our variable each time? So each time we add 1 to counter. So counter will go to 0, then it will come in here inside the for loop and execute the code, and the code inside the for loop is just hello world, and then it will add 1 to counter. So now counter is 1 and this condition is still true. It will do this, it will add 1 to counter. Now counter is 2, this condition is still true, and it will do this, it will add 1 to counter. Now counter is 3, this condition is still true, it will do this, and it will add 1 to counter. So as you can see, we are doing this 100 times and we want to do it 1,000 times. So save this, build, and run. And as you can see, now we have this thing being printed 1,000 times to the console. So this is how you would do things over and over again. And this is true for Solidity. When you're creating smart contracts on the blockchain, you can use this kind of loop structure, and this is how you do it in C++. And also we will later do this in EOS. So when we program EOS smart contracts and using the EOS blockchain, this will come in handy. So definitely remember how to do this, and definitely remember how you do loops in C++. But of course, there are different types of loops. We just looked at one type, and this is the for loop. There's also the so-called while loop, and the difference is basically that instead of doing like this, you instead write like this. So you have the keyword while, and then you have some kind of condition inside. So let's say that we have a variable called counter equals to 0, and here you put your condition. For example, while counter is less than 1,000, and you can basically do the same thing but using the while loop. And I hope you understand this from the JavaScript section because we've already discussed this. And here you also need to increase this each time. And if we run this, well, you get the same kind of result. You have hello world written to the screen 1,000 times. And there are different use cases for while and for, which we might explore later on, but for now just remember that this is how you can do loops and how a program can execute code over and over again. And just to clarify, this is an expression that evaluates to either true or false. So each time C++ will basically take a look at this and ask itself, is this true? If yes, execute this. And when we execute this, you see we alter the counter variable, we add 1 to it, and then we can come up here and we basically check this again. Is this still true or not? Now, there are ways that we can exit from the loop. So for example, let's let's print this number here. Let's print counter. So build and run. You see that we go from 0 all the way to 999 in this fashion. And let's say that if counter is more than 500, well, then we want to break. Basically, we want to exit the loop. So we can prematurely exit loops. This is also important to realize. And this is something you will see later on as well, that you can prematurely exit loops even though this is still true. If you have a break inside the loop, it will exit and it will not continue. And as you can see, now we exit after 500. So when counter is more than 500, you see this break condition and the loop breaks. And so now, for example, what we can do, having this knowledge about loops, what we can do now is that we can, well, first of all, let's comment everything we just did and keep it. Let's go back and let's, for example, copy these two lines. So we have number of cars and we have car miles. Now, how can we compute the total number of miles that all cars have traveled together? Well, somehow we need a loop to go through this array and to add all of the miles together. So let's create a variable called total miles, and it will be 0 from the beginning. And what we want to do now is that we want to do a for loop that will start from 0 and it will go to number of cars. So we want to iterate from 0 and then to 1 to 3 and until we reach number of cars, which is 3. And then you want this counter to increase with 1 each time. And then you do total miles plus equal car miles, and then you want to access the element counter like this. So what are we doing here? Basically, to make this simpler, what you can do is that you can cout. You can print total miles is currently total miles. So with each iteration we are printing this, and then before we add anything to total miles, we print adding car miles counter to total miles. Like this. And let's put end line here as well, so that we get some nice spaces. So let's run and see. And as you can see, we have adding 15 to total miles. So basically we came here and we are writing adding and then car miles counter. The first time we come here, car miles counter will be counter the first time will be 0. So we are basically writing car miles 0, and car miles 0 will fetch the first element in car miles, namely 15. Because you remember that if you have car miles counter and counter is 0, this basically means car miles 0, and this basically means 15. And then the next time you come in here, counter is now 1, so car miles counter is now equal to car miles 1, and now it is 13 because this is the second element. And so this is what we see here, adding 13 to total miles, and total miles is currently 28 and then 43. So if we remove these prints in here, we can just at the end here print count cout total miles of all cars is like this. So let's just see how it works. Build and run. So you see total miles of all cars is 43. And this is of course true because 15 plus 15 plus 13 is 43. So guys, try to understand this as much as possible, because I understand that for this syntax can be a bit strange, and now you need to understand how we are accessing the different elements in this array using our counter variable, which keeps increasing. Because I mean, if you just see out counter is now, and you can try to see what counter is currently. So you see, if you run it, you see that counter is now 0, counter is now 1, counter is now 2, and then you can have... try to do this. Whenever you do not understand code, try to write like this, and you can help yourself actually. And then you can have is now like this, so you can actually print that car miles counter is now like this. And if you build and run, you see counter is now 0, car miles counter is now 15, because counter is 0, so this is car miles 0, so it is 15, and then counter is now 1, car miles counter is now 13. So guys, I hope you understand, I hope you enjoyed, I hope you know about loops in C++, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day, and I'll see you.